Spokane listens when business talks. Welcome to Business Talks, the region's only local business talk show with your host, Ryan McNeice. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Now, let's get down to business with Business Talks.
Welcome to Business Talks. I'm Ryan McNeice, and we're here in the studio with Tim Mitrovich, CEO of 10 Capital Wealth Advisors. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a while since you've been here. We're actually trying to figure out how long it's been.
My daughter wasn't potty trained, I know that, but that's how I mark time these days.
It's been a while, but a lot has happened in the markets, and a lot has happened in the growth of your business.
Yeah.
And I think one of the more interesting parts to me with the business is always the foundation, the building blocks, how it came to be. Give me a little bit about how 10 Capital came to be and your background.
Yeah, so my background was found out pretty quick. I was easily distracted by another interesting topic. So I loved in college, all of it: math, science, psychology, sociology, and started to get a feel for at least one of the things that could bring all those together would be being an advisor and working in the markets, because it's a little bit of all that, right? It's math, it's psychology. So fast forward with that, with some great mentorship, went to law school to just kind of understand again how the world worked from that perspective.
Got sidetracked with a little law.
Did mergers and acquisitions for a couple of years at a big firm in Seattle, and then came back to this because I like to pull all those things together, but wanted to do it while relating to people. Came back to an investment firm. And a lot of what is really starting to get fully manifested at 10 Capital, again, in terms of how we relate to people and how we communicate and the importance of narrative,
right.
Not just from a sales perspective, but most importantly, getting people to stick to a plan,
right.
And feel known. Had my own vision for how that would look. And so I left 7 years ago last month and started 10 Capital.
7 years ago now.
That's the shortest.
How'd you come up with the name? Because the name, we talk about it here in this studio quite a bit. A name is important. It is a way that a business engages, or is sometimes that first relation with the customer.
Yeah, I mean, without trying to be too negative about everybody else, I looked at what we did in particular and thought this is going to take a whole team of people, from insurance to planners to investment experts. I don't have an expertise in all those things. I might have a working knowledge in them, but I'm going to need colleagues and team, and I want them to buy into what we're doing, and I want the clients to feel that. And to me, then it felt, naming it, there are a lot of reasons not to name it Mitrovich Capital, not the least of which is pronunciation, but, naming it after myself really wasn't going to convey team. The same year I was forming the company, my grandfather, who is a huge part of my life, passed on.
That same year.
I thought, well, how could I honor him? How could I reflect this, team spirit? And so the short of that was 10 is based off his high school jersey number, and football. He was no one of note, no Heisman trophies or anything cool like that, but just, and we didn't really even talk about it for the first few years. I didn't want to try to sell my grandfather's legacy.
No, I know
grave,
that's not the lead, but
yeah,
but
that's where it comes from.
As much passion as you put into what you're doing, and Jake and yourself and the rest of your team. Yeah. Literally, the definition of team. Yeah. That's real analogous to looking back at a lot of our listeners and those high school experiences with sports and team and working towards that common goal.
Yeah.
Well, 7 years in. There's no doubt you've built an extremely competent team that is engaging with a high number of clients. The market, as we all know, up, down, left, right, but here in December, a lot of volatility. A lot of volatility through the new year. We've come off of a 10-year pretty good run. How do you deal with the engagement again with these clients that have put their trust in you, but you can't necessarily dictate that we have some pretty good runs, and sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes up. How do you interact and compensate for that?
Yeah, real quickly, happy to delve deeper into any of them, but I think there's three important components, some of which we indirectly alluded to. Number one is don't pretend to know things you don't know. I don't know where the market's headed. I might have some ideas. I don't know whether those play out in 2 months, 6 months, 2 years, and I can't be building people's plans or pretending to them that I do know. And
Based
so
on trying to be omniscient.
Yeah, I think just being honest with people about a lot of people that continue to do sold them I'm the smartest person in the room type of a sales process. It's not going to be helpful. The second thing is a high degree of communication in terms of quantity, hopefully quality.
Yeah.
And so we have Instagram posts, Facebook things that are 60-second vignettes on a thought or who we are, resonating to our weekly commentaries, which are both written in video form. So we put a ton of time and effort into being there for people. You'd hear people in our industry all the time say, oh, don't listen to CNBC or don't listen to that. But there was a void. Okay, then what do I listen to? And nobody was putting in the time and the effort to fill that void with hopefully unbiased and useful information. So we tried to step into that.
Well, in a sense, you're differentiating yourself from the rest of, what is a financial advisor? What is an investment advisor? A wealth advisor? By doing, I think, some of these vignettes that you spoke about, including your podcast, Pulling Back the Curtain, that's exactly what you're trying to do is why are we different? What value can I give to my clients?
Yeah, the pulling back the curtain was, it was helping people understand the business. So we'll bring in managers, and it could be what's going on within markets. I love some stories. We work with a lot of small business owners, and hearing the grind that they went through, continue to, and sharing that story, because I think a lot of people like the idea or the notion, they don't understand the work that goes into that. To some of the abuses in the industry and helping people better understand how to not get taken advantage of. And, all that's just to say we're going to put that value out there and let people hire us because, that we're trustworthy. The third thing I guess I'd touch on to answer your question about how we get people to stay the course is really helping them. Did a 4-part series that's on our website, free, called, why are you investing? And a lot of people, to make money. Yeah, but what does that mean then when the market's going down?
Goal? Yeah.
Right? So how does that relate to your plan? How do you get through those tough times, not just emotionally, but even financially? And really helping people, again, understand how those dots connect so that they can, again, drown out a lot of the noise that's out there or things that are beyond their control.
Do a lot of folks that come to you, and we deal with this with estate planning, the verbiage actually that, we can help you with your estate planning. The word alone brings this concept, I don't have enough of a estate, if you will, to do estate planning. Like, oh, no, we mean your requisite wills, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, et cetera. Do you run into that same thing as an advisor where someone thinks, I probably don't have enough resources to be dealing with a wealth advisor? How do you deal with some of those?
Yeah, wealth
questions?
advisor. I mean, I remember, I think I was getting my hair cut. What do you? I'm a wealth advisor. Wealth. Wow. Like, what does it? We work with everybody who's just starting out to people who have tens of millions of dollars, and to us, it's all about. We have people, advisors in their 20s up to the 70s, right? And so it was all about creating service models, and if that's a fit for people, and we think it is for most, then that's great. And if it's not, then that's fine too. But no, we welcome the opportunity to work with a lot of different people. I'm as guilty as anyone of starting to use verbiage unintentionally. We go through an exercise, my mea culpa, of asking clients, what's the thing we do that you value most, and what's one thing we can improve? And I had a client just the other day say, more small words.
Interesting.
Yeah, which was great. So that's the mea culpa. The one, perhaps my greatest success along that, and I'll share this, was maybe helpful to people in terms of understanding the concept. I came up with this analogy about a milk cow. And I've always prefaced it by saying I'm not trying to be patronizing, but I said, let me put it this way. If we could get you a cow that gave you the milk, i.e. money, that you needed, independent of whatever the market was doing, and you could live off that. Consistently, and count on that milk being there, would that help? Yeah, that would meet my needs. And I'm like, so then think about your crazy neighbor comes by every day and yells out a price for your cow, how much they'd pay you for it.
Yeah, I'll give you such and such.
And if you think this is a stretch, I'm like, think about the idea that the world tries to reprice itself daily.
Yep.
Intraday.
I was going to say it now.
It's bizarre.
It's every
really.
second.
If you think about it, it's bizarre, right?
Yep.
So
it's a good analogy, though.
But let's just focus on getting the milk. You're not looking to sell your cow. So how do we bifurcate what you need? I guess that's too big a word. How do we get what you need without it being, again, dependent on things that are outside of our control, which is what is your crazy neighbor, what is the market going to give us on a given daily basis. That analogy has really done more to help people. I've gotten more referrals where someone comes in and says, my friends, the Johnsons, told me I should talk to you. They told me to ask you about the milk cow. So of all the pithy, fun things I've done, milk cow.
All the bifurcation
bring it down, help it. And again, we're no different. I go to pick out a TV or God help me if I'm trying to get underneath the hood of a car.
Right.
I'm feel vulnerable.
Just tell me what's wrong, Doc.
I don't understand the word you just used to describe this part of my vehicle. Just bottom line it out and hopefully treat me fairly.
But such a good point, though. That is a great analogy. And why do we think the Bible was in parables? It's in stories that we as normal folks can understand. But I think that's such an important point that you make with that analogy, because at the end of the day, what you do see on the CNNs and the Fox and the ticker tape and the noise and the psychology is just this constant repricing, when really, as you said at the beginning, what's your actual goal? Yep. Is your goal just consistent milk, and if we're going with that analogy, but to produce or maintain even the principle of your investment for later years? Yeah. Versus what our society and culture is telling us all the time is buy, sell,
And to be clear, without getting tricked into some overpriced insurance product, because there are plenty of people out trying to trick people into their money. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it in ways that are very fair and relatively inexpensive to clients. But no, it's just a quick factoid that I think are critically important for people to understand. If you pull up any stock chart, you'll see that it goes up over time. And the day in which we look back over 50 years and it's pointed down, we all had much bigger problems than our retirement accounts.
That's a good point.
In the last 91 years, the amount of years in which people would have gotten an average return in the stock market, which we'll just say is 5 to 10%, only happened 9 times. So when you open up that annual statement, you're like, well, this isn't my average 8% return I was supposed to see, and you panic, you're going to do something counterproductive, because the market doesn't act as we expect it to, but that doesn't mean it's not working. Right.
Yeah. Why'd my advisor? What are they doing wrong? 2% this year, down 2%. Well, it was up 15 the next.
Half of trading days are negative. About a third of months are negative, and a quarter of years are negative. So again, I bring up those two things. If you're like, well, I'm invested to make money, and I just expect a reasonable return. That all sounds right.
As long as it's above 10%.
You got to give time.
Right.
Because again, on that given day, half the days it's not working because you didn't make money. The market's rarely ever going to give you average. So what else do you need to know? How do we get to that milk part of that analogy to know how you're going to get from point A to point B? And so there's a lot of unlearning we have to do with people. Like let go of all these things you think you know. And again, I'm unlearning every day as well.
Right. But that's what I've appreciated about yourself and Jake, though, and we've had many conversations just over lunch, et cetera, where you are unique in that you are willing, and Jake is willing to learn, and I think that's necessary in the legal business too, that when you stop learning, you're not as effective in adding value to the clients. You're willing to look at the good parts of the industry, the more difficult and challenging parts of the industry, and I've enjoyed that. I think from a credibility and a trust standpoint, I'd imagine that's what your clients are seeing too, that this is an individual that is willing to look at this as a whole and say, what are the needs of the client? How do we get there? Not without challenges, not just a sales pitch, but how do we get you from A to B for those folks' specific goals? Yeah. Let's take a short little break. When we come back, I do want to talk about kind of that idea, and you've spoken to this in your podcasts and shows, that why do I need a financial advisor? Well, in the general concept of folks saying, I know what I'm talking about. Why do I need one? So let's take a short break and come right back.
Great.
Hi, this is Kurt Stockwell with Well Dressed Walrus. We are a local website design and development company here in Spokane. What we do is build beautiful, usable websites for local businesses. A website needs to be beautiful, it needs to be usable for your users, your customers, and yourself. Contact us anytime. We'd love to talk with you about your online marketing.
I'm Jade Becker, and I'm a senior at Chewelah High School. I'm at STCU's Money Live event. In this scenario that we played today, I was a realtor. My spouse was a city worker. We had an 11-month-old child, and there was a lot of spending for that child, like diapers and formula, and had to buy toys and clothing. I'm very glad that I had this experience. It was super helpful. You need this to get far and ahead in life. I'm Jade Becker, and STCU is here for good.
The following is sponsored by our friends and community supporters at McNeice Wheeler Attorneys. McNeice Wheeler is a boutique law firm in Spokane, handling matters in both Washington and Idaho. Areas of law include business law, wills, trusts and estates, family law, personal injury and wrongful death, and real estate matters. For your full-service legal needs, contact McNeice Wheeler Attorneys.
Welcome back to Business Talks. I'm Ryan McNeice. We're here in the studio with Tim Mitrovich, CEO, 10 Capital Wealth Advisors, but also does the podcast Pulling Back the Curtain. And I myself actually every week check out Tim's vignettes, whether it be on LinkedIn or otherwise, all podcasts from Stitcher to
Facebook,
iTunes,
Instagram, it's everywhere.
But what I appreciate, I normally wouldn't probably jump to talk about these different opportunities, but I've heard Tim speak to this, and I think you do have a way with your words, and you spoke about this in the first half of our show, where you are speaking to folks where they're really understanding what I think 10 Capital is trying to accomplish and how they're trying to engage with their respective clients. And before the break, my comment was, I think what the general public often says, why do I need a wealth advisor? Why do I need a financial advisor? I either think I know what I'm talking about, but I might actually know what I'm talking about, but you still need an advisor. Mm-hmm. Tell us why and your theory behind why.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably a few different things to bring up, but we'll focus on the one that was in a recent Instagram post. I mean, yes, there's access to certain things you can't get other places, and there's expertise and in design, but one of the big parts of it is the emotional component. Mm-hmm. And literally the same part of your brain that gets triggered when you're in mortal danger gets triggered when you're losing money. There's a lot of counterintuitive things that happen during a really strong bull market where people try to chase stock prices that aren't productive as well. But I think when you have that and you understand on either front, the first part I brought up, which is on expertise and access, to the second piece, which is emotional, which is I'm going to need other people. Mm-hmm. And that's really that 10 Capital story, even with respect to our colleagues internally or the different partners that we work with externally. My colleague, Charlie, was sharing a story. He came back, it clicked into being an analogy, but he was down at the Masters a few years ago watching a practice round and watching this pro golfer hit shots from the spot next to him, and he turned to his caddy and said, whatever's going on, do not let me hit this club from this spot during this round. And when I told him that, that's just it. These people understand when it's time to pull out a driver versus a putter. Mm-hmm. Your caddy telling you shelve the driver, use your 3-wood. And I know that Ryan just blasted it 400 yards off the tee, but you're not hitting your driver where you use it. It's that partnership and understanding we're all prone to those same things, including us. Again, that's why I have my internal colleagues. That's why I have a lot of external colleagues that we'll rely on. Is so critical to get you from point A to point B. The ego's got to get put away. I said this to a client. It was before this analogy. Like, well, I think I'm smart enough, and I think I've got this down. I'm like, Tom Brady's got a throwing coach.
Yeah.
What do you do in your life? I have nothing that you do better than Tom Brady throws a football.
Yeah.
Or Tiger Woods swings a golf club, and they have coaches.
Well, and I think, as you said, it's not like Tiger Woods doesn't know what club he wants to grab.
Or how to swing it.
Right.
But that third-party perspective or at a moment in the tournament or whatever the case may be,
do not
having
let me
someone
hit the
else
8-iron from this spot.
having somebody else look at that and say, hey, I believe in you, or hey, did you realize you're doing this? Or hey, this was the plan, we should stick to it. Yep. Whatever part, because there's many parts to it, are there. And then understanding that whoever those great people, I mean, look at so many amazing business owners who have coaches, professional coaches. Yep. They embrace, I am confident in my capabilities, but I want to continue to grow. And I know that really can't take place within my own head. I'm going to need a partner, a different perspective, a different expertise or set of experiences to help me grow.
That objectivity. And I can only speak to it in the legal profession, that there's all the cliches about being your own client, representing yourself. And it's because, I mean, as you said, you have the skills, and we believe in our collaborators, we have the skills. But if you're representing yourself, to separate that objectivity from the emotion might have two different results. And I think that's part and parcel of the way you're saying.
So much of what we're doing, I mean, it is objective. I mean, the subjective parts are really about, again, that emotional support and or restraint in the sense of checking emotions. But a lot of it, we sit down to do planning. I'm like, it's just the math. Yeah, but I feel like I want to be able to give my kids all this money for college. Well, that's great, but then you can't retire when you want to retire.
Yeah, you're like, the equation stays the same.
Which one we can move and I'm not saying that to be cold or callous or whatever the case may be, but what is your biggest priority? And that's point number one with we don't come in with we're smart, we know where the market's going, we have the best investment picks. It's who are you? What do you value? What are we mapping to? And then, because we don't have any proprietary, in-house stock picks, funds, things that we get extra comp for, we're mapping to you. Yeah.
Speak to that a little bit, though, in terms of that, because as you just said, I think it's critical, and I don't think a lot of individuals realize this, that if you have only proprietary products, you are putting folks into things that might not necessarily, I don't want to oversell this, but in the sense that proprietary versus you having the option of making something fit for an individual's plan versus why don't we just put this person in a proprietary product because there's more commissions is a significant issue.
Yeah. Without overdoing the analogies, I mean, it's my job to have as many great ingredients as I can. So those are outside mutual fund managers or maybe ETF companies or it isn't my job to have, and most of it's driven around trying to get extra compensation, a certain just limited subset. You go to a lot of insurance companies or a lot of these guys out that are trying to sell annuities out of fear to people. It doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth. They're going to give you what they have to give you.
Right.
And that's one of the, people are like, well, what makes 10 Capital different? We're like, we don't know what we're going to do for you when you sit down. Like, what does that mean? Well, it means that you go to a lot of places, they're going to try to put you in an annuity or whole life policy. You go to a lot of places, they're going to give you the stock picks that are their stock picks. They may not be appropriate for you. It may, even if they're good at it, it may not be the right time in the market cycle for that to be the answer. And so how does that person you're working with have all the options at the table, not get paid differently based on what they use, or again, even have their ego tied up into, well, these are the stocks I picked and I really think you need to have them. They need to be objective, listen to you, and as best they can fit both from a financial and emotional perspective, craft what you want to have. Sadly, that's not most of the industry. That's a very small part of the industry.
I know that to be true. And again, I respect that you've communicated that very well, not only, again, in the segments that you've done on your shows, but when we've chatted. Hopefully, individuals out there, individual investors that you're going to be working, hopefully they understand the magnitude of how critical that is, because it's big concept in the financial services business.
It's big. There's a lot of buried fees. I mean, I was just at a lunch with some people, and they were, well, our guy wants us to do this. I'm like, do you understand that these insurance commissions can range anywhere from 6 to 100% of whatever check you give them?
Just front-end loaded.
Think about that. You 50, and again, it's not that it's always the wrong thing to do, but I'm like, you need to understand why they might be doing what they're doing.
Right, and there might be some reasons, potentially, in front of the individual.
It's like choice. Medicine, right? It just may not be what you need at that time, right? But if it's the only pill I have, that's what you're going to take.
I've always had an issue with that in the legal world, because can you take this road and can you take this? But with the emotion running high, should you just jump headfirst into litigation that's highly inefficient, costly, and stressful?
Right.
You sure can. And in certain instances, it might be the only option.
Right.
Many instances, it's actually not the right choice.
Right.
But it's dependent on that advisor or the lawyer that's kind of directing traffic.
Right. I mean, well, but I feel it's like, no, I understand that and I respect that.
Yeah, I'm highly
but I'm
emotional
telling
about
you,
this.
it's not the productive path to go down. Right.
Yep.
So you need to be aware of that. Yeah, I mean, down to even, a lot of the national companies will get mutual fund companies to create special share classes. That's why if you type in a fund company into Yahoo, you'll see 26 different letters after
That's interesting.
the fund. It's, okay, I'll sell your product, Ryan. You're going to pay me a 0.25% fee on the back end. And, the client's really, it's disclosed on page 26 of a document that nobody reads, but, I don't think it's honest.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think you pretty clearly differentiate you and the firm and the individuals in the firm that you guys are going a different direction. And there's a quote that I saw out there that you had that don't focus on being better, focus on being different. I think that's an important and it's actually a powerful comment because most people, better. You're saying don't focus on being better. How can we differentiate? How can we be different?
When you're checking emotions, that's one I have to check for myself because we all want people to like us. If you're a business owner, you certainly want people to do business with. And then, again, as obvious as a statement, I realize there's 7 billion people on the planet. I'm not going to work or know most of them. And so why am I acting in a way in which, or being disappointed when I'm not? Someone doesn't like me or they don't want to work with me. You just need to find that group of people who get you, who like what you bring to the table, who, this is a business pretty quickly and you see it where apathy can set in, whether that's for any number of reasons. I want people, when I'm getting up, before the sun's up most days, who's motivating me to get out of bed? Who are these colleagues that I don't want to let down? Who are these clients that have entrusted their families and all their hard work to me? It's important that I like them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it really is.
Well, and
if it's not a fit, it's not a fit. And that's okay. But, not pretending to be, again, something you're not, be able to do something you can't, I think is critical. And, I don't know that it ever been a real conscious thing, but subconsciously, I think it can creep in on any of us.
Well, it's worth noting, we can talk about the nuts and bolts of the equation and the math, as we've said, about investments and percentage increases and paying points and commissions. But a point I do want to make at the end of the show here is what some people don't necessarily see on 10 Capital is your community involvement. And 10 Capital is very committed to this community in a whole diverse range, not only for good causes, but worth noting. You're having fun. And one thing I'll throw out is, and maybe it's just because I want an invitation back, is the trivia nights that you guys give us a short version of how you created and what you've done with the trivia nights, because they're blast.
The trivia night. Yeah, so we've got a March Madness event. We've got the professional services trivia night. I think same premise, countless other educational things. We went to that last point about finding your people, right? I want, when I'm telling you I think I could be of help, or you're deciding whether maybe I could be of help, for us to really know each other.
Right.
And that's really best done outside of the office.
That's true.
And so being able to relate with people and see what they're like in settings outside, I think, is critical. Just to invest in people. I mean, I get the question all the time, what's the return on investment on this? I don't know. I mean, the firm's growing. I think we're the fastest growing firm in town. But again, that's not where we put our focus. And my grandfather that I named the firm after, I would always be like, well, how do you know? Like, you do good things and then good things happen. How do you know you're just not doing it for the good things, right? It's like, if you're asking the question, you're probably still on the right side of the fence. But that's, I think, part of that with the respect to those events is we like the people we're doing things for. We want to be a good corporate citizen. We want to put our time. Everybody talks about team and relationship and caring and service, and then they go home at 3:00 in the afternoon and don't do anything with anyone.
Right.
That doesn't make
any
sense.
You got to be doing it for the right reason.
Where we're like, no, I really enjoy these events, the people we do them for, and want people to see effort. I want them to say, hey, those are authentic people, and they tried. And if at the end of the day we can do those two things and help some people, then I would have had a good career.
Right, something tangible. And you're right, the market is going to go up, and the market's going to go down. Mm-hmm. On average, let's hope it's going to go up. But you're right, if you're living for every incremental tick up or down, that's probably the wrong focus.
Yeah, it's not going to be constructive for sure.
Tim, keep up the good work.
Thank you
it's
so
fun
much.
Watching 10
Appreciate the
grow.
support. Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Business Talks wishes you good business and a good day.